Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here for the third part of our Interfaith Dialogue program. Hopefully you've gotten something to be able to eat and drink if you want. If someone can turn the music off back to St. Asma, and we will get going. I don't know how you feel about it, but it has been an absolute blessing to me to have this program. And I know we still have this third program to go as well. But the ability to have three programs, each that had three of the faith traditions, so we could cover all the 9 that are part of CCIU, is not something that happens all the time. And so being able to do that is really a blessing and an unusual one for all of us to have. So I want to thank CCIU, I want to thank Richard and everybody else who's been such a part of putting this together. So thank you very much. Appreciate you and your organization. So we have 3 new people here today. We have Piyush Shah, who's representing Jainism. He was born in Bombay, India, and he moved to the United States in 1979 and retired from Aetna after 38 years in the IT department. So we're going to have to talk more about that because I worked at Aetna for 17 years, and I guess we overlapped somewhere during that period of time. He has 5 months as an extended family and have taught him the basic values such as nonviolence, truth, and love towards other human beings and respect towards other faiths. Greg Dupuy, Unitarian Universalism, is here representing that. Greg was part of our service earlier. Greg grew up in Rhode Island in a Roman Catholic family and had an early interest in studying diverse religious perspectives. However, he was skeptical of creeds, so welcome to the family, because most of us are as well, including myself. And for 16 years, he attended Catholic schools, including Providence College. Go UConn, go Huskies, where he relished studying philosophy and religion. He's also attended Washington University, University of Virginia, and Carnegie Mellon, amongst other things. So Greg, who's 55, was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy at the age of 4 and given a life expectancy of less than 20 years. So 55, you can see that there are a lot of things that have been wonderful in that way, and we are blessed, truly blessed to have him here today. We have Tasneem Hussain. Tasneem is a practicing Indian American Muslim with a multicultural background, born and raised in British Hong Kong with ethnic roots from India, and she asked me to keep her bio short, so I'm stopping there, and we'll let her explain anything more about herself that Tasneem would like to explain from there. But let's go ahead and get going in this first question. Remember the format here. If you've been here before, you know the format. The format primarily is your questions. So you have cards and pens there. If you ever need more cards or more pens, let us know. If you have a question prepared, you can put your hand up, and someone will come and pick up that question, and we will do our best to cover as many of those questions as we can. But this is a more effective program when your questions are being answered as we go through this. But we will start with this one for all speakers. What is it that drew you and continues to draw you to your faith? And what is it that keeps you practicing that today?
I'm in the middle, so what do you first? Give us cards, though. Okay, sometime today.
And it works.
Okay.
Thank you. So, lots of background to begin with. I was born in a family with lots of faith. Almost every day, everyone is doing prayers. Everyone who is not working or not in business will come home and do prayers. Before they go to job or a business, I would say they do prayers. All women, when they are not cooking or busy, they will do prayers. So prayers and penance was part of the family everywhere and anywhere. In fact, my family has 5 priests, and out of 5, I would say 4 were female and also 1 male. So I would say faith was part of our family life, everyday life. Of course, now it is changed. It is more work, more job, more money, and less faith. But still, I would say faith is a part of the family.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Is it on?
it's
Okay.
fine. Just keep it right up to your
So my story is a little bit different. I was born and brought up in British Hong Kong. And my parents are from India. And we are of the Muslim faith. So being in that situation itself exposed me to a lot of different things. In India, growing up, my parents had exposure to all the different faiths. And then they brought that with them when they brought me up. That you're Muslim, but you're definitely not the best. Everyone is got their own faith, and that guides them to whatever they think is the right path. So you're choosing this path, you're choosing another path, but the path is the same. The destination is identical. It's just how you get there. So that's what I was always brought up with. Also, my father was more of a practicing Muslim in the sense that the rituals, like he would pray the 5 times a day. My mother wasn't 5 times a day, but definitely prayed. But neither one of them ever forced my brother or I. They always educated us, but there was always that thing that you're not praying for me. Like, you don't have to be afraid, like, dad's coming home, oh goodness, go run and pray before dad comes. I used to do that when I was little. And then my mom and my dad would go say, you're not doing this for me. So you've got bigger things to worry about if you're not praying for someone. So they would always say, find yourself. When you feel like praying, pray. If you don't feel like praying, don't pray. But certainly don't pray for me. And that's how my faith grew. So initially from being a child who sort of like just ran because dad, I didn't want to get into all that, to someone who actually found her own faith and absorbed it because both my parents were very good about it. So that's my story.
Okay, Tasneem was so eloquent that I think she's a hard act. But I grew up Roman Catholic and went to Catholic schools, and I think a big part of it wasn't that my parents were particularly devout, but they thought I might be safer in a Catholic school. I don't know if that was true, but I was always fascinated by religion, but I had a difficulty with a lot of beliefs of Christianity or Catholicism specifically, that I didn't believe in the rituals, or like specifically transubstantiation, believing that the bread and wine were actually Jesus, and that by doing that ritual that you, I don't know, would get closer to God. But in addition, I think I had difficulties believing in the Trinity, the divinity of Jesus, and ultimately I think I'm agnostic, but to some extent I think everybody has to be, because ultimately God, the concept of God or anything that's in the text might point to a greater reality, but ultimately I would think that different religious perspectives are more metaphorical and not literal. So when I heard about Unitarian Universalism and that there was no creed, I found it very appealing, even though it took me many years to actually get to a UU meeting house. But I strongly wanted the community of religion, of a faith community, without necessarily feeling like I had to say a creed that I would feel hypocritical saying, rather than just saying, I really don't know. And I find that more acceptable at a UU meeting house. And a big part of UU is also acceptance of one another and encouraging spiritual growth, which we would do that within the community, but I think we would also believe that if somebody's Christian, that they should be the best Christian they could be. If they're Muslim, they should be the best Muslim they could be, and if they're Jain, they should be the best Jain they could be. And that we're not trying to get people off of their spiritual path, but ultimately to encourage people to find purpose and meaning on whatever spiritual path they choose. And additionally, I don't know, belief in the right of conscience that ultimately everyone needs to decide for themselves. So so again, I value a faith community. And well, an additional thing I could say about my UU meeting house, I didn't go there to get help from people, but when I was in the hospital 18 years ago to get a tracheostomy and was told that I could never be left alone, I found so many volunteers in my UU meeting house that at some point more than 20 people have learned how to operate my respiratory equipment, which gave me just the level of support was remarkable. So I think even if they don't, when we say love one another, I think people actually really act out love. And generally we don't explicitly refer to the Bible or a specific religious text, but I think that ultimately our principles are derived from Christianity, and I really appreciated hearing Sean's sermon today on the importance of love and religion being more important than anything else. I mean, ritual, excluding anybody, and I think I probably exceeded my time.
I want to play off that statement that Greg made, and Piyush asked you when he said, okay, we hope that the Christian can be the best Christian they can be, that the Jain can be the best Jain they can be, and that the Muslim can be the best Muslim that they can be. Would you each explain what that might mean to you? What would be being the best Jain mean to you, and then what that would mean to you?
Sure. I will learn by the end of tomorrow. Now it works, I think. So to me, best Jains to me is whatever our book says, do. So 3 major principles of Jainism. Number 1 is non-violence. Do not hurt, do not kill. Means do not hurt, do not kill in the level of the words, the thoughts and the actions. Number 1. Number 2 is acceptance of the multiple viewpoint. I am right, but you can also be right from your viewpoint. So that's number 2. And number 3 is very hard for me, is a non-attachment. We are supposed to don't keep on, I would say, collecting. Just be happy with what you have. It's always a greed, desire to have more, the property, money, bank balance, gold, so forth and so on. So those things are, I would say, the basics of the Jainism. And if I can follow even 1% of what I say, I'll be very happy with that. Tazeen?
Yeah, it's on.
Is it on now?
Okay.
So, to be a good Muslim or a good practicing Muslim, the first thing is for people who are non-Muslims, who don't understand Islam, a lot of misconceptions are that we are violent and all we want to do is convert everybody around us to Islam. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. Like in Jainism, we have our book, the Quran, and in that it is very explicit. There are verses in there that say that if God wanted to make us all the same, he would have. And we're not, right? So there in itself tells you that. It also, there's a verse that says that, everybody has a right to follow their path. And there is no compulsion in religion. These are verses that media never tells you about. And this is what people who don't know us need to understand, that as a good Muslim, that's the guiding principle. We don't force anybody to do anything. We're happy if you want to come on board, but we're not here to make you convert. Number two, we are, again, not violent people. In the Quran, there is a verse that says, killing one innocent person is equal to killing mankind. So fundamentally, we are not violent people. And Islam itself means peace. So it completely defies logic to think that somebody who is practicing Muslim would deviate so far away from what their fundamental beliefs are. And the third thing is family. With Islam, a Muslim is very dedicated to their family. Family ties, blood, everything. Not that friends don't matter, but blood is blood. And you are very close to your family members, you respect elders. That's the guiding principle, again, in all Muslims. If you meet a practicing Muslim, there's always a respect for the elders. And there's always that belief that they were like you once, and just because they're older, doesn't mean you just forget about them or don't respect them or you think you're smarter than them. Because any Muslim child that does that is immediately stopped in its tracks. So it's like, what do you mean? You have to talk like that? Immediately. At least that was for me, and I can see all my friends, and I've done the same with my children. So those are my things that I would say would make me a good Muslim. The non-violent part, which we are not. The practicing your faith to the best ability that you can, following those principles, not forcing anyone, and finding your faith, yourself.
Just a reminder for everybody, if you have questions, just put your hand up with your questions. John DeHoyos will come and grab them and bring them over here, because that's going to be the best way this goes. So Greg, I have a question for you. What does it mean to you? You decided to become a member of the board of CCIU, Connecticut Conference for Interreligious Understanding, the group that is running this alongside with us. What made you decide to do that, and what does it mean to you to be serving on the board of CCIU?
Okay, that's a difficult question, but I guess the first thing was that I was always interested in different religious perspectives and reading about them, so I could appreciate the opportunity to meet people of other faiths and to learn about their faiths. I also think that maybe this wasn't the primary motivation, but that also you use value people pursuing their own spiritual paths, and also I think we strongly believe in the First Amendment and the right that everyone has to. We believe in the right to practice your faith as you choose. And since going back about 25 years ago, the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House in Manchester had been on the board of CCIU, and my friend Drew Mower was on the board, and when he became a minister and moved away, he was looking for somebody else to be on the board. So when he brought it up, I jumped at the opportunity. And I really do think the message of respect for people of various faiths and practicing their faiths freely is a more important message now than ever. And I'm thinking of the UU first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all people, which formulation of love your neighbor as yourself, or love one another as I have loved you, which would be unconditional love that everyone of all, whatever their identity, whether it's religious or racial identity, ethnic identity, is deserving of respect. And I can also value being on a panel like this where we're all learning about one another.
It's beautiful. Thank you very much. We have our first question for each of the panelists in whatever order you would like to go. How does your faith or spirituality help you navigate this world and your daily life?
Now this works, I know for sure. So there are lots of problems in life, some within, some outside. So when I am angry, upset, not feeling good, not feeling well, I do my prayers. And prayers has almost always given me calmness, peace, and quiet. It does not work all the time. There is no magic. Because even while I'm praying, my mind wanders everywhere. I think of more negatives, more problems than positive. But if I still continue to do more and more prayers, it has always helped me. So the faith, the prayers have helped me a lot, because the options are not that many and not good options as compared to the prayers and calmness.
Could you ask that question again?
How does your faith help you navigate daily life?
Okay. So, in Islam, you are required to pray 5 times a day. Morning, noon, afternoon, evening, and night. Okay? So, in itself structures your day. So, am I able to do all 5 every day? No. I'll be very honest, no. I try, but I don't always get to do it. But what it does do is, at those times, it makes me stop. And for that moment, I have to think of my religion, my faith, and like Piyush was saying, same thing. It gives you centering, and it calms you. And I think that I value a lot in Islam, because it kind of breaks it up for me without me even trying. And so automatically, throughout the day, there are moments where I'm always connected with my faith. So the times that I can do the ritual and actually pull aside and pray, that's wonderful. But even if I don't, my mind, I can recite prayers to myself, and it doesn't matter where I am. I'm sitting in a car or in an event like this or whatever. As long as I'm not focused on something else, my focus goes to that. But those 5 times a day automatically make me think of my faith, and I like it because it keeps me grounded and at peace.
Right?
In some ways, I'm struggling with this question to the extent that, within Unitarian Universalism, since it doesn't really prescribe specific ways of praying or meditating, that in some ways it's up to each individual to decide. I don't know, I can say yesterday I was exasperated by listening to the news, and I kept listening.
Anybody relate to that around here?
I'm not going to listen to the news, so I listened to some podcasts on Stoicism. But ultimately, I'm not exactly sure how I deal with life's stresses, other than it's a very good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer.
And I think that's a beautiful answer, right? I think that was actually a comforting answer to me, that someone in a leadership position coming here to talk to us about it's like, sometimes I'm not exactly sure, and that's a legitimate feeling for us to all have sometimes in this. Tasneem, I have a follow-up question for you. One of the things you said was how kind of fundamentally misunderstood Islam is, right? That from the core of the name of it, from the teachings of it, that the impressions are so much different, or people have taken it in a different direction. Why do you think the perception is so different than the reality of the faith as you know it, and certainly as I've experienced it with people who I know?
I don't think you need me to answer that question. I think everyone here can say it in unison. Media. That's all there is to it. The fundamental thing about any religious faith, you need to know someone of that faith. You just need to know one person. And if you know that person, you're going to have a greater understanding of what that faith brings. So if the media is pushing you away from Muslims, why are you going to go towards them, right? You're going to be like, oh God, no, forget them. They're the 9/11 bunch. They're the ones with Osama bin Laden. They're the ones that are doing all this. And so you just pull away. But I can give an example of my own life where I go to work for years. And one day, it was a Friday or something, and one of my supervisors just said, hey, do you think you can come in on Friday afternoon? I said, oh, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do it on that particular Friday. Oh. And I said, oh, you got somewhere to go? You go to a party? I said, no, actually, I'm going to the mosque. I got to pray. You're Muslim? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, when did you convert? And I said, I'm Muslim my entire life. And they were like, oh, you don't look Muslim, you don't act Muslim. And it was a very innocent question. It wasn't meant to be in a bad way at all. It just came out of their mouth, all of them there. That you don't look Muslim, you don't act Muslim, we never knew. And so obviously, me being me, I just said, what does a Muslim look like? How do Muslims act? Let me know, I'd like to know. And that's why I think it's a problem, because people don't make the effort to find someone. I mean, how are you going to find someone who's Muslim? You're just going to walk in the street with somebody wearing a headscarf and say, hey, can I be your friend? It's not happening, right? So the media somewhere has to expose us all to the good side of Muslims too. Unfortunately, we've just never had that kind of luck. So we have people like me and others walking around trying to educate people. So my thing for this is all of you here now know one Muslim. So after this, please come talk to me, be my friend, and I can guarantee you will think of Islam differently.
Thank you very much. That was very, very powerful. Piyush, would you tell us something that you think is most misunderstood about Jainism?
Absolutely, yes. So in Jainism, one of the things we all are supposed to do is fast. That means no food from morning to evening and only boiled waters. Some will do it for 1 day, some for 8 days, somebody will do for 30 days. I know somebody who has done fast for 180 days at least 5 times already and is doing one more time. So most of my friends, when they see me, they ask me one question. Are you fasting today? No, I'm not fasting. I'm actually eating 10 times a day. So it is not fasting. I would say, our book says, if you can do fasting, it is fine. Otherwise, I would say eat less or control yourself. But fasting is a very common thing as a misunderstanding.
Thank you. This question is for Greg. You okay, Betsy? Want to give you something? For Greg, my family and I came from a Unitarian church in South Windsor, and Bloomfield was just too far to arrive on time, so we tried a non-denominational church. How'd that work? As a step up, but not too much. And I wonder, do you ever adopt different religions' rules as they apply for the day? If not, what are your thoughts? Yeah, I'm gonna try to summarize this one. So This is a family who's been, had attended a Unitarian church in the past, and they went and they tried different churches, and they are wondering if in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, if you ever adopt the traditions of different religions as part of that, or if it is done differently.
If some people adopt the beliefs or traditions of a different.
I think they're asking, so Universalism, Unitarianism, is it that you respect the various religions, or do you take on practices from different religions as part of your practice?
Okay, generally, for part of RA, religious education, the kids will have opportunities to visit other faiths, but another key thing about Unitarian Universalism is that anyone could join a Unitarian Universalist meeting house with the beliefs they have and not change any of their beliefs. So, for example, Karen over there, my partner, is a Christian, that she is a member of the UU meeting house, but she still remains a Christian and hasn't changed her beliefs at all. And we have, I can think of a couple who are Episcopal and they belong to the Unitarian Universalist meeting house, and they did not change their beliefs at all. So, you can be part of our community, but and be another faith in good standing without changing anything. Having said that, most people there would probably be, if they were still remaining Orthodox Christians, would be more likely to be at a UCC church rather than a UU meeting house. But so ultimately, it's entirely up to each individual. So we wouldn't discourage anybody from practicing any other faith.
Thank you very much. This next question is for everybody, or anybody who wants to answer this. How important is volunteering in the community to your faith?
One word answer, very important. But which way? So our faith says, help others. Not only just money, but time-wise. If you cannot give money, then give time. If you cannot give time, then I would say give good advice. Many elders, including me, now we can help others in advising things. We don't have to always give money or property or clothes, whatever you have. Another thing is volunteering. Whatever is excess in your home, give it away. It is difficult. It is difficult, but that's what it says. In volunteering, other things always comes up. We have a team of people who will go together to help somewhere. I would say build home, or I would say help somebody in need.
Again, same thing. Very important in Islam as well. You're taught from childhood that you have to give time, give yourself, because it teaches you selflessness and not to be selfish. That you have time, but if you can give time to somebody else and get nothing back from it, that's what should enhance you and make you a better person. So with us, it's a lot to do with feeding the poor as well. Like always recognizing that you are blessed with certain things, and there's always going to be somebody who is more blessed than you, and somebody who's less blessed than you. So if the person who's less blessed than you, whatever it is your means are, you have to help them. That is a guiding principle in Islam as well.
Well, when Unitarian Universalism is agnostic about belief in God or an afterlife, that ultimately the focus is the here and now, and that it's very, very important. It's like the focus is to help other people and also make sure that anybody who's marginalized is treated better and gets the help that they need. Yeah, it's critical to all our principles. Like I guess could say like one of our principles is justice, equity, and compassion, and human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice. So it's like very important that we, I don't know, there's lots of Unitarian UUs are activists, and it wouldn't surprise me if about half our congregation was probably out marching yesterday, and it would probably be a matter of pride for some of them how many times they've been arrested protesting all sorts of different things. So, yeah, it's important.
Thank you very much. Just so you know, some people have questions in the congregation about a fund that we have called the Social Justice Fund. So people have a question about that. And that is for us to do active social justice work, but it is also to, and the reason to tie to what Greg said about getting arrested, it's also to bail people out. Right? If you can't afford to get bailed out, right? Because we think that everybody should have the opportunity to act out in social justice and resistance if you want to. And if someone has a lot of money, they can be bold like that and they're not as worried about the bail. But if someone doesn't have a lot of money, that can be devastating. So we make sure that there are funds there that if someone does that we can be there to help them and allow them to continue to do that social justice work. So just so you know that if you're thinking about going and doing that, we'll take care of you. Phone number, yeah, just give me a call. Here's another question. Christianity has the Lord's Prayer. Is there any common prayer like that in your faith traditions?
So in Jainism, it is I would say many prayers. I would say all the faith. But one prayer which we do recite every day, maybe hundreds or thousands sometimes, is called Naukar Mantra. This prayer called Naukar Mantra praises God without naming the God. So anyone who has these, I would say, qualities of helping other people, and they are not living anymore, but they are all about this. I would say my children learned that prayer, I would say, when they were, I would say, very young. And they recite it, they don't know what it means, but they still recite it. So Naukar Mantra is the prayer of all the prayers in India.
With Islam, we have something similar to the Lord's Prayer as well, and that is recited every time in those 5 times a day that we have to pray. And it is the first prayer that children are made to memorize when they're young. And the same thing, the one thing that I don't know if people know or not, but all Muslims, I shouldn't say all, but majority of us read Arabic because our holy text is in Arabic. That doesn't mean we speak Arabic. Doesn't mean we're Arabs. It's just the holy text came down in Arabic. So, like me, an Indian Muslim, I can read Arabic. I can read the whole Holy Scripture. And through my life, I have learned how to interpret it through teachers and, going to Sunday school, that people will explain it to you. But I by no means can speak Arabic. So, but all our scriptures are in Arabic. So whenever we pray, we're all praying Arabic. The other thing about Muslims, which I think people find maybe fascinating or whatever, is that any part of the world you go to, anywhere, and you walk into a prayer. If I walk into a prayer in Turkey, or, well, not Turkey, Turkey's Muslims too, but let's say China, when I went to China, and there was a mosque, and I walked in there, where we all know what to do, and we all do it in unison. Because it's just the way you're taught from childhood. It's the same rituals, so it's a sense of belonging. So there's no difference. When you go into a mosque, you're not sort of looking and saying, oh dear, what prayer are they praying? Is it, you know exactly what it is. It's the afternoon prayer. I know exactly what to do. I know when to stand up, when to sit down, when to bow my head, what to pray. We all know. So that's something that I think is very fascinating about Islam, that people may not know, that we always do it in Arabic. So our Lord's Prayer is in Arabic, and all of us pray every day.
Tasneem, follow-up question on that. Can you explain the difference between how you and Muslims generally view the sacred scriptures in Arabic versus how you consider a translation?
Okay, so this is the thing. With the Quran, there have been numerous interpretations, translations, etc. Because the Arabic that's used is not the daily Arabic that you would find somebody in Saudi Arabia talking or reading. It's a very deep, very almost like Latin, where we would not understand it, and it's converted to English, right? So it's the same thing. It's a very deep form of Arabic. So there are certain scholars who have translated it, who people respect in the greater Muslim community around the world. So if anyone were to ask me that, hey, I need a translation of the Quran, I wouldn't just go pick one up and say, here, take this one. I would refer them to that scholar, because I trust that that scholar has done the groundwork. We all trust that scholar. So there are a couple of them that we would do that to. But in terms of reading, like even children, we always try to teach Arabic, because that's where the scripture came from. So my children would learn, even I did, learn to read it in Arabic, recite it in Arabic, but learn the translation so you know what you're reading. Because it's pretty pointless to just read something out loud and not even know, just follow rituals without even knowing what you're doing. So a lot of us will take the time to teach our children what it actually means.
And I think that's something that's very important for people who come from our Christian tradition to remember, is that when you pick up a Bible, it's already gone through about 4 language transitions over history by the time it's become English. Right? Whether it started in Greek or it started in Hebrew and then became Latin and then became German and then became Old English and then became this. Every single Bible, every single Christian Bible, no matter what the translation, is an interpretation of the original. And so that is something when people are saying, oh, this is the literal exact word of God. I'm like, well, which translation? Because it's not the original, and there are no absolute complete originals to this. So thank you very much for saying that, because I think it's very important, and I really respect that about Islam and how you do that. Greg, yourself, any thoughts on that in terms of a prayer or any of these things we've just been talking about?
Okay, well, the simple answer would be no, but having grown-up Christian and having a Christmas tree every year and wanting to have the chocolate Easter bunny on Easter, I would, at times when I've been completely exasperated or got my wheelchair stuck and was exasperated and there wasn't anyone around to help, I would revert to saying the Lord's Prayer over and over again to get distracted from the situation I'm in. So, and I guess that's about it, though I do at some point want to talk about the common history between UUs and UCC, but I don't know when a good opportunity would be.
Now sounds like a good opportunity for that.
Well, basically, I spent a lot of time reading, preparing for this book to be able to say this, but ultimately, Unitarian, well...
I apologize for interrupting. Can you bring the mic closer, if possible, to people having a difficult time?
Okay.
Not just you, but just the mic.
Okay, ultimately, I know that the UCC was a merger in 1957 of several different religious groups, including New England Congregationalism, which would be particularly important in a New England Congregational Church. And Unitarian Universalism was a merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists in 1961, and basically the Unitarians, well, ultimately it was a rejection of the Trinity, is where the name came from, but ultimately we trace our history back to the same 17th century New England congregational churches, and that we also are governed congregationally. Each congregation has a covenant that everyone agrees to voluntarily, and those, and also the right of conscience for each individual, and that each congregation can hire their own people, that we share that with the UCC, and ultimately what was called the Unitarian controversy in the late 1700s was when some congregations became Unitarian, while others remained Orthodox Congregationalists. And like a key thing was the Unitarians, the American Unitarian Church first emerged in 1825, but again it was from churches that had previously been congregational. So I know I've heard several UCC ministers say the joke of like that UCC stands for Unitarians Considering Christ.
Unitarians Considering Christ, that's great.
So yeah, but ultimately a key event would have been in 1805 when Harvard, which obviously had been founded as a congregational, or at that time, Puritan seminary, became essentially a Unitarian seminary. So we're really branches off the same tree. So I don't know. I guess that's all I needed to say on that topic.
All right, thank you. Next question. Do you invite visitors into your sacred space, the meeting house, the mosque? I'm not sure where what you call Jainism practices for your religious space. And do you attend service weekly? Start with you.
The answer is yes. In fact, we have next Thursday a House of Worship Day visits. A Connecticut department, about 30 people will come in a bus, and we'll visit about I would say House of Worship. Hindu Jain temple in Middletown, Sikh temple in Surrington, and mosque in Avon. And actually we do have this kind of days or services all the time. If anybody is interested, then I would say please contact myself, any of us, and Rick. I'll be very happy. But actually we do that almost all the time since many years. I want to bring back a question which was raised to the scene, and actually she answered very beautifully. But I want to say this thing about Muslims and violence. I am born in Bombay. Many friends are Muslims since 50, 60 years. We have been friends before, during and after the war. India, Pakistan fought 3 wars, many deaths, many destructions. But in spite of all of this, what you see in media, I would say we were friends, and I would say still friends. Our home was near the mosque. Next to mosque, 50 feet away, I would say temple was there. There were every day mosque prayers and temple prayers, 3 to 4 to 5 times a day, on mic and otherwise. Not a single time there was a violence in many 50 years or even more. So what you see on TV is one thing. It's mainly because of politics, power and money. because somebody is paid to show certain things over and over to sell whatever they want to sell, the policy. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Piyush. The question was, do we welcome people? Yes, we do, absolutely. And again, media will let you think that nobody is allowed to step foot in a mosque except a Muslim. Absolutely wrong. Anybody is welcome, but you just can't walk in because you wouldn't know what to do, right? So you would have to call the mosque and say, hey, I'd like to come and visit. And they will schedule a time and tell you what you need to do. It's very simple. Like in our mosque, we have a room like this, a general room, where wearing shoes and no head cover, whatever. But then we have our prayer room. And our prayer space, for women, you have to cover your head. And for men and women, you have to remove your shoes. That's just the way it is. It's pure, it's clean, we don't bring anything dirty from outside, and the shoes get removed. So that's all there is to it. And in terms of welcoming people, absolutely, we have it all the time. Our regular prayer is once a week on Fridays. That's our holy day. And traditionally, it is mandatory for men, if they can, to go and pray on Fridays. Now, you have to keep that in context, that usually wherever you are, there's a mosque near you, and you can just go quickly, go pray, and go back to work. Women, on the other hand, it's not mandatory. It is advised, but it's not mandatory because they know women have to take their kids and they have to do their thing and how they're going to get from point A to point B, all that stuff. But here on Fridays in Avon, that's the mosque I go to, we all show up. And it's so many people show up that we have to have 2 sessions now. That there is just not enough space to have just one session where we used to have that many years ago. So yes, anybody's welcome, but of course you would want to ask somebody first so you can go in and know exactly what you're doing. And during that Friday prayer, we have numerous people coming that want to just understand us more. And while we're sitting and praying, they're just sitting in the back. But anytime, anybody is welcome.
Right?
Yes, everybody's welcome all the time. Yes, the simple answer is yes. And I've had the opportunity to see a year ago to Piyush's Jain and Hindu temple down in Middletown. And I've had opportunities to visit mosques as well as other houses of worship.
Wonderful. Next question. Have you changed your behavior at all in response to the big push to eliminate diversity?
I don't know what it means to other people, but to me, our university is good. I think because we all are different. Some are rich, some are very rich. Did I say that? Some are rich, some are poor. Something like that. But I think my point is that diversity is very important. And also look at us. It means you all are different. Right? Jainism, Islamic, faith, and you faith. And we all are different, but I think we all bring something very common. What I heard so far from all 3 of us, from your faces and actually that line, now will hold us together. And it is so true. So this is all common things. So I'm very happy to be here, ask more questions, because the rule is, I think he forgot to tell you, if you don't ask us, then I think we will ask you. So ask us more questions.
In terms of changing, no, I would never change myself for that, because I have always been an advocate for diversity, always. And so somebody telling me not to advocate for it makes absolutely no sense to me. It's just not in my DNA. So me personally, I haven't done anything of the kind. I have not gone out of my way to promote it either. I am who I am. But one of the things that I usually bring up when I'm doing panels like this is when, usually when I walk in to any event or something like that, and they know there's a Muslim speaker. If they know it's a woman, that's already something great. And then they're looking around for the woman who's a Muslim. And that apparently is not me. So I just want to make that clear too, that in itself is diversity, right? Because look at me. I am a practicing Muslim woman. I do not wear a headscarf. That doesn't mean I'm not a practicing Muslim. So that idea of diversity also is within the religion. So it doesn't mean it's just outside religions and outside races and outside of your culture that there's diversity. It's within your own faith. Like, I'm pretty sure that within any of our faiths, there are going to be people who are very religious, people who are moderates, and people who aren't at all, but still identify with being Muslim or Christian or Jain or whatever it is they identify with. But I always like to say that when I talk, because I think people are sitting there, not everybody, but some are sort of thinking, oh God, she certainly doesn't look the part. I mean, I expected somebody else. But I hope that it's a good thing, because that's what I want to bring across. That's another misconception on Islam, all Islam, that women are oppressed and need permission from God knows whom for everything. But no, I do not need permission.
I guess the answer would be no. I probably just doubled down on what I already thought, but I also find, well, I don't know if this is a tangent, but I find it very disturbing when talking to some people in my family about hearing them complaining about immigrants, when I can think like my own brother-in-law is an immigrant from Portugal, and that my great-grandparents were French-speaking farmers from Canada who came to work in textile mills, and I'm like, find it inconceivable, like, to see like why the current immigrants are any different than my ancestors. And then I'm also, I think I have the words of from the Bible about love going through my head over and over again when I can hear them say, like, we're Christians, we're the people of God. And it was like, okay, well, how is it that you can follow somebody who seems to hate everybody? It's like, again, it was the bad religion that we heard about in the sermon, to not be focused on love. If it's just thinking that by believing in certain things that you're going to go to heaven, rather than actually living out. It's like reading the second stanza of the Nicene Creed without doing anything that Jesus said that they're supposed to do. And if human dignity or being made in the image of God applies to any human being, it has to apply to all. And if it doesn't apply to all, it applies to none. I think maybe I'm just more passionate about diversity after 10 years of Donald Trump.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Have you taken, next question, have you taken a leadership role in your faith or spiritual community, and what inspired you to do that? If you did. If you didn't, that's totally fine too.
So basically we have a few people, maybe 10 people or a group or so. We do prayers together almost on every Sunday. And basically we talked about certain common interests towards the faith. And the same thing comes up all the time of non-violence, doing prayers almost all the time, and I would say helping other people. So we are growing in our thoughts, common thoughts, not for the Jainism per se, but I would say in general, I would say help each other And no, there are many problems which comes up in the temple or temple area, and we all work together to basically, I would say, solve them. But we do talk about Jainism's faith also, I would say in specific also.
Thank you.
I think my contribution to my mosque would be bringing these kind of panel discussions. That through CCIU, I got that opportunity and I jumped at it because I think it's very important that being from my diverse background, that's the reason I am the person I am today. And my children are like me too because they've been brought up that way. My 4 best friends from childhood since 5th grade, and we're still friends today for reunions every couple of years. We're on 4 different continents now. And I'm the Muslim, there's a Christian, there's a Hindu, and the 4th one is an offshoot of Hinduism. We're all different. We grew up with celebrating each other's events, respecting each other for the way we were, never anything. And I think that made us all grow the way that we are. Like I said, that shaped me to be who I am. And I would say that that's what I bring to my mosque, that my diversity, my thinking, and hoping that I can translate it to other people. Because I personally believe that it's the best way to go. It's the only way to live in the world today. We don't live isolated anymore. We don't live with your own community, with your own race, with your own religion. You just don't. And I think it doesn't make for a healthy atmosphere when you do that.
I guess the primary way that I may contribute to my meeting house is being on the board of being involved with CCIU, but in addition I'm on the finance committee and on the policy board, but ultimately I'm not taking a leadership position in either of those committees. So yeah, I'm just a voting member, and I'm never going to sign up for president or vice president, and I generally don't like public speaking, so which isn't helpful for speaking in meetings. So that's generally not helpful if you're going to be on a policy board.
Well, at the same time, you're standing here being a leader for your faith and what your beliefs are. So I think all of you are proven to be leaders. I'm just taking over for Pastor Sean real quick. The next question, now Greg, you had said that all congregations are self-governing. And so this is really a question for Piyush and Tasneem. How are Muslim and Jainism congregations governed or self-governed or otherwise?
So in India, there are many spiritual leaders. They also have usually a temple or a prayer hall. It's always a management done by, I would say, non-saint or non-priest people, and they do have all these activities. So somebody is managing the financial side, the funding side, the building, the parking, and calling people, and so on and so on. And our priests are giving all the sermon, or I would say all the books knowledge. And that is how it is done. And it is not just only one group. There are many groups all over India. There is no one leader in India who is from Jainism. There are 50, 60 Jainism leaders all over India.
With Islam, each mosque has its own setup. There isn't one leader that the whole Muslim world follows. We don't have that. So depending on the mosque you go to, you will have a spiritual leader. Each mosque has its own, which is how in churches, I guess, would be the priest or the pastor, or in Islam it's called an imam. And that is somebody that is, again, the person responsible for all the religious scripture and leading the Friday prayers and sermons and teachings. The actual running of the mosque is by volunteers. So people get, there's a board, and then the board members are the ones that make the major decisions. Then you have a treasurer, you have, in any organization, a treasurer, a financial person, all those different categories. But then we also have subcommittees, which are purely made up of volunteers. So like we have the hospitality committee, which I'm part of. Then there's the refugee committee, who, when we had all the refugees coming in, that we needed somebody to organize that everybody wanted to contribute, but where's all the money and where all the supplies going? So we had a committee for that. Then there's a committee that organizes Sunday school. There's a committee that organizes this. So it's all based on volunteers, but there is a system. It's not just a random sort of, I'm just going to walk in and run the show. It doesn't work like that. Every mosque has its own. So the Avon Mosque has its own people. The people of the Avon Mosque cannot go to the Berlin Mosque and just start saying, I'd like to do it this way. It doesn't work that way. Each mosque runs itself.
How are leaders chosen in each of your faith traditions in your respective? How are the leaders chosen within your faith communities? If there's even such a concept.
So in Jainism, it is not selected by common people. It is done by already all the priests already in existence. So 20, 30 priests will get together and say, he is the leader of our community or our temple. And that is what is done. And again, it is not only one in one state or one, there are many, I would say, such leaders all over India.
In Islam, we're actually in the process of that right now in the Avon Mosque. The imam of each mosque goes through an interview process. It is a job. So you have to have a resume, you have to have the qualifications, you have to have the personality, you have to understand the audience that you're going to have, all that. So they go through a process of interviews. So when I say we, I per se not, but the board interviews people. And then once they have a candidate that they think is good, which is what happened recently, then the entire community is invited for a informal dinner, lunch, to meet this individual. And then if anybody has any concerns, you bring it to the existing imam or the board and voice your concerns. So how much weight that has, it's hard to say. But there is definitely an interview process and the board decides.
Right?
Okay, when it comes to electing the leadership on the policy board, the president of the congregation or the chairs of any committee, it's ultimately a vote of the congregation with just requiring a majority. Obviously, in most cases, it would be a supermajority because it's kind of hard to get people even willing to fill these positions. So it's not like they're competitive elections. But when it comes to choosing the minister, theoretically, we could hire anybody regardless of their qualifications. But in practice, we will generally only hire ministers who have gone through a divinity school and have gone through rigorous training and done internships before we would hire a minister after obviously many interviews and giving people throughout the congregation opportunities to meet them before we would vote to hire them. But ultimately, everythh depends on the consensus or the vote of the congregation.
Thank you. So, question for each of you to answer, because you're going to get to make it up. What question do you wish was asked about your faith tradition or something else that you would like to have had asked that you now get to answer?
I wish somebody had asked us what is common between Hinduism, Jainism, and Islam, and many other faiths also. And I wrote this before I just came in the car home. So there are many common grounds, many common grounds. Some differences, but common grounds are as follows. Between all these faiths, prayers, penance, pilgrims, spiritual leaders, forgiveness, charity, and friendship. And on top of all, we all believe in God.
Thank you.
I wish somebody had asked, what exactly do Muslims believe in? Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions or interpretations of what we do and why we do them and what we believe. So I wish somebody had asked that question because it's a very concise answer. What are our tenets? What do we actually believe? So what we actually believe is that there's one God. They're angels. We believe in prophets, and when I say prophets, everybody. So there is everybody from Abraham, Jonah, Joseph, Jesus, Moses, everybody. The only difference is we say Muhammad is also a prophet. That's and he was just continuing the message that all of these prophets have said. So that's something I think people don't understand. They just think that, we worship Muhammad, which is no, absolutely not. Muslims only worship and bow down to God. That's it. Muhammad is a human being, just like the rest of us, a mortal man who lived a normal life, had wives, had children, had, a job, all this stuff, and then died a death like everybody is going to do. So that's something I wish somebody had asked, a little bit more clear about what the Muslims believe.
Thank you very much. Greg?
Okay, I think I may have already asked my question previously. But generally, I don't think most people have misconceptions about Unitarian Universalism because most people don't know that we even exist. And if they did, they might assume that we're Christian, and in some ways, our name would kind of imply that we are, because Unitarian came from, what was probably generally a heretical Christian position on Jesus and not believing that he was divine, and again, probably from the perspective of the sermon earlier, practicing bad religion by not focusing on that looking at Jesus as a human being who was a good example, but not God, and that what he preached was probably as close to what I would see as moral perfection, but you can definitely find it in other faiths. And then in terms of universalism, that was a position of saying, a Christian position of saying that rather than that only a limited number of people would be saved, that everyone would be reconciled with God. But in the long run, what's kind of a misnomer is that we've moved so far away from those original positions that wouldn't have been that different from Orthodox Congregationalism. We have moved far away from that in some ways the name that our name has Christian theological position, but we're really not Christian anymore. But I think knowing how hard how much we would do, I think if we tried to change the name to not confuse people by sounding Christian, I think we would be debating for the next 100 years and could never reach an agreement. I think I'm done.
So we have some questionnaires that are going to get passed out. We ask if you would please, it will help the CCIU and us and others be able to continue to do this better and better and better in the future. Thank you all for being here. This doesn't work if you're not here to ask the questions, if you're not here to listen and participate and understand these things. So I really want to thank CCIU, Tasneem, Yush, Greg, thank you very much for your honesty, for bringing everything forward, and for willingness to share. Thank you for your time and for being here tonight.
Thank you.